What I'm going to be talking about is biblical worship and what it means to worship and why it's important, and kind of give a little exhortation for you guys. Biblically speaking, there's a few examples of worship in the Bible. Like, ones that come to mind immediately are like Miriam, when they're singing about how the Lord threw the horse and rider into the sea. David, in many instances, writing psalms, or tearing off his clothes and just crying naked before the Lord is another form of worship. A lot of times when we think about worship, like in a modern context, what we're thinking about is there's a team on stage, people holding guitars, playing keyboards, that kind of thing. And I would say that is not actually in itself worship, although that can facilitate worship. Both in the Greek and in the Hebrew, worship is pretty much straightforward translates to kneel or prostrate yourself in front of a monarch or a superior. And so when you boil it down, like to the ultra simple, worship is living your life grounded in God's truth with an accurate perception of our relationship to God. He's our King, our Creator, we're members of His kingdom, His created, and He's our Savior. Dwayne actually pointed me to this verse, Colossians 3:16. Let the word of Christ dwell richly within you, with all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another with psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, singing with thankfulness in your hearts to God. Worship is like one of the first tools that we need to reach for in like our Christian toolbox. Feeling down, good to pray, good to simply lay in worship and to remind yourself, like that song we were singing where it says, take a moment to remember who God is and who I am, and there you go, lifting my load. When we put things in perspective and remember that we are His created, He's our Creator, and He looks after us. If He clothes and feeds even the flowers of the field and the birds of the air, will He not even take care of us? And then another passage that I wanted to share that I think pertains to this is out of John chapter 4, starting in verse 15. The woman said to him, Sir, give me this water so I will not be thirsty, nor come all the way here to draw. He said to her, Go call your husband and come here. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, You have correctly said, I have no husband. For you've had 5 husbands, and the one whom you have now is not your husband. This you have said truly. The woman said to him, Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and you people say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus said to her, Woman, believe me, an hour is coming when neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. But an hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For such people the Father seeks to be His worshipers. God is spirit, and those who worship Him must worship in spirit and in truth. And this is a little bit anecdotal. I tend to notice that most Christians fall into one of two camps when they are thinking about worship. They tend to either worship entirely in spirit or entirely in truth. And what this passage says is that the Father is looking for people who that duality exists in. So let me just kind of illustrate like spirit versus truth a little bit. An example of worshiping in spirit is like giving yourself emotionally over to what the Father has for you. So saying like when you encounter a passage, like allowing it to really like turn over your heart and like change how you see something. That would be like a good example. Well, that's actually a good example of both. But my point is that I think a lot of people can come into church on Sunday mornings, raise their hands, close their eyes, and really actually make like a real like connection to God in that moment. But as they go about their week, they may forget about the truths that they encountered on Sunday morning. So it's important to walk in both of those things, not just one of them. Let's see here. So in closing, I'll just say basic worship is living out the Christian life as we're called. Singing songs on Sunday morning is a great way to remind us of how we are positionally related to God. And my challenge to you is this. Ask yourself if you are practicing daily worship. As you're going about your day, in your relationships, are you putting God first? Are you obeying Him? Worship is the fruit of a transformed life, and so I would encourage you to self-reflect on this.